football and how to play it, Cameron. Then strip, lads, and to it, though sharp be the weather, and if by mischance you should happen to fall, there are worse things in life than a tumble in heather, and life is itself but a game of football. From the above quotation by Sir Walter Scott, it is evident that football is quite an ancient game. Time alters everything, and it has undoubtedly done so in football. Where one used to play with half the village on one side and the same on the other, it is now restricted to sides composed of 11 players. As I have been requested to write on the modern game, it's not worth while dwelling upon how it was played 100 years ago. Football is really supposed to be a Scottish game, but it was in England that a proper association with defined rules was first started. This was in the early 60s, and since then the FA has grown to be one of the most powerful bodies connected with sport of any shape or form. They're a most wealthy association, and their power is paramount. It must be said that they have had everything to do with making the game what it is at present. Although autocratic, they deal thoroughly and honestly with both clubs and players, and it will be a bad day for the game when any body of clubs break away. At the time of writing, rumors are very rife, but it is to be sincerely hoped that once again rumor is a lying jade. Friendly matches were the order of the day in the early stages of the game. Then came the establishment of the English Cup competition for all clubs in the kingdom. This was in the year 1871, and it was only after 11 years had elapsed that the Cup went to the north, when Blackburn Olympic were the winners. May we say, en passant, that a Scottish club, namely the Queen's Park of Glasgow, took part in the final contest in 1884 and 1885, but were beaten by the Blackburn Rovers in both cases. After that, the Cup had a long sojourn in the north, and it was not until 1901 that my old club, Tottenham Hotspur, managed to bring it back to the south. Again, since then, the north have had a monopoly of it, and southern enthusiasts are longing for it to have its resting place somewhere in the south. Another epoch in the game was the starting of the league system of playing matches. The idea came from the fertile brain of Mr. W. McGregor, who is familiarly known as the father of the league. This system undoubtedly proved a great success, and although loyal amateurs still play in the same friendly style, the public took to it immensely, as is well shown by the difference between the attendance at league and friendly matches. Senior, junior, and schoolboys are the names of the leagues now existing, not to mention tradesmen's and shopkeepers' Thursday afternoon associations. The mere fact that at cup ties and international matches the attendance has been over 100,000 is convincing testimony to the winter pastime's popularity. A record crowd assembled at Hampden Park, Glasgow, last April to see England v. Scotland, the attendance reaching 130,000, and the sight was a most magnificent one. Before the close of my preface, I should like to express my regret at the separation of a portion of the amateur element from the parent body last year, and personally, I could see no reason for their so doing. I can only say the pity of it. Again, football and charity are synonymous, and it would surprise many critics if the total amount of money collected by clubs and associations was reckoned up. The last match in aid of charity was played at Stamford Bridge, between Manchester United and Queen's Park Rangers, and realized over £1,000, and I think that speaks for itself. Chapter 1: Goalkeepers and Goalkeeping. Goalkeepers, like poets, are born, not made. It is really the most difficult position on the field to occupy. If the halfback makes a mistake, it can be rectified by the man behind him, but if the goalkeeper makes a blunder, it is fatal. It is the one position on the field that I have never occupied, and I never had any desire to figure there. My ideal for that position would be a man who stood 6 feet and weighed at least 13 stone, with an eye as keen as that of a hawk. He must be able to divine where and when the opposing forward is about to shoot. All the great goalkeepers have been of a fearless disposition, practically throwing themselves at the ball, even at the risk of receiving a kick from the attacking forward. Fearlessness is undoubtedly a tremendous asset in the making of a great goalkeeper. he must also have a perfect understanding with his backs, and they must trust him infinitely, which makes his responsibility all the greater. I have often been asked the question whether the goalkeeper should train as regularly as any member of the 11, and I have replied without any hesitation, certainly. In one way he does not require such a severe course as a halfback, who has to go through much more work than he does. He should go in for plenty of short sprinting, so that when running out of his goal to meet any forward who has broken through, he will be able to meet the ball quicker than his opponent. The reason for this is obvious, as half a yard in 20 will make all the difference between a goal being scored or not. I do not believe a great deal in gymnastics for footballers in general, but this method of training does a goalkeeper a world of good. Punch ball exercises are some of the best he can practice, and nearly all clubs have a ball fitted up in their training room. He ought to also practice place kicking, and endeavor to do so with both feet. I have often seen a goal scored simply through a poor return by the goalkeeper. Many allow one of the backs to take the goal kicks, but this is a big mistake as it entails extra work on him, and he probably has as much to do as he can get through. I always like to see the ball thrown or kicked to the wings instead of the center where the play is generally concentrated. It is a mistake to attempt to punch a ball when it is wet and greasy, and there is plenty of time to give it a lusty kick. Many a match has been won and lost through the goalkeeper attempting the former. The inauguration of the penalty kick has made the position more difficult than in the olden days. Critics say that 11 goals should be scored out of 12. This is all very well in theory, but in practice it is another matter. It is, however, from both points of view, a most trying time in any game, especially when the result of the match depends upon whether a goal is scored or saved. I shall never forget last year at Chelsea, when in the closing moments of the game Notts County were allowed a penalty, from which they scored. That goal saved them from going down to the second division of the English League, and also saved thousands of pounds for the county. When I was manager of the Spurs, I always made a rule that the goalkeeper should have plenty of practice in this department. I found that in a big match things were certainly different, and especially if there was a large crowd present. The eye of the multitude is concentrated on the keeper and the kicker, and there is a great strain on both, although to my mind the goalkeeper has the advantage in this way. If a goal is scored, no one blames him, as it is expected. If the forward fails, there is usually a loud groan. L.R. Roos, the great Welsh international, in a well-written article for a standard book, has very well defined the chief duties that fall to his lot. 1. To prevent the ball passing between the space bounded by the upright posts. 2. To kick off when the ball has been sent behind the goal line by one of his opponents. Another great point where the goalkeeper must use special discretion is whether to run out to meet the forward or to stay at home, as it is called in the football world. Undoubtedly, if the forward is clear of the other players, he should leave his post and endeavor to meet the forward. Every yard he goes out means that he leaves less space to be guarded. It's a well-known fact that the more work the goalie has to do, the better he shines, and it often happens that the side that has been resting for half an hour breaks away and a goal results. A forward or a halfback is always in the midst of it and gets warmed whether his side are losing or winning, but the keeper has often to exercise the faculty of patience. There have been many great goalkeepers, and it's very hard to pick out even half a dozen who stand out for their fame. In Scotland, when I was a boy, Macaulay was considered to be the principal goalkeeper, and quite deservedly so, if only for the simple reason that in international matches, especially against England, he always rose to the occasion. Moon of the Corinthians, A. Trainer of Preston North End, Toone of Notts County, and later on Sutcliffe of Bolton and Robinson of Southampton were always to the fore, and of the pair it is very difficult to say which was the better. Both have played for England on many occasions, and at no time were they ever disgraced. Their methods in many ways were different, but the one thing they had in common was that they both knew the right moment to go for the ball. Robinson was without hesitation the more fearless, but Sutcliffe made up for it in many other ways. I've played against both on several occasions, and cannot honestly say that one is greater than the other, for what one is deficient in, the other makes up for in some other way or by some other method. The goalkeeper, like the policeman, has a very happy time in comparison with 15 years ago. In the olden days one could practically do as he liked, and it was not at all uncommon to see the goalie bundled over the line ere the ball came near him. He is protected now in every way, and he cannot now be charged except when in actual contact with the ball. This is a good rule, and has done a great deal for the game. Chapter 2. Fullback Play. One associates the fullback with long and lusty kicking, but he must possess many more qualifications. He must be speedy, a fine tackler, and above all a good header of the ball. He must also keep himself thoroughly fit, although in one way he has not so much to do as the men in front of him. He must be strong in defense, but again, when his side is having the most of the play, he should be able to put in many a good shot. It is also requisite that he should be able to kick as well with one foot as the other, and boys especially should study this point. It's simply a case of practice. Every opportunity should be utilized in developing the left foot, which is rather weaker than the other, and every 11 out of 12 are greatly inclined to use the right foot, but if you keep on practicing, it will not be long before you will be quite as proficient with your left as your right. To become a good artist, you must study kicking the ball from any position or angle that it may come to you. There is what we call the drop kick, the free kick, the overhead kick, the place kick, and taking the ball on the run. The overhead kick is practically one to be avoided except in a grave case of emergency, because you are never certain of it coming off or of placing it to any advantage. The drop kick also takes a great deal of practice to be accomplished with anything like success, but the essential thing is to be able to keep the ball on the run and kick it where you desire. A back should be of a steady disposition and always keep cool, for if he loses his head, he is of little or no use to the side. It is also necessary to know when to head or kick the ball. It is often imperative that a back, for the good of his side, should punt the ball over the touchline, but when doing so, he should not make a lusty kick and put it over the grandstand. All that is wanted is a gentle touch to the railings, which is the proper thing to do. As I have already remarked, to know how to head the ball is of the utmost importance, and it is effective in clearing the line, especially from corner kicks. Heading is quite an art of its own, and takes a long time to master. You should be able to get at the ball not only with the forehead but with either side of the head. There should be a general understanding between the two backs, and also between them and the goalie. Each should understand the other's play to a nicety and cover one another's mistakes to a certain extent. They must have confidence in their goalie and should give him plenty of room in which to operate. It is also important to know when to pass back to the goalkeeper and to do so correctly. I've seen many goals scored from faultiness in this respect. In tackling, a back must be quick in turning so that if the forward beats him, he has a chance of overtaking his opponent. This has always been a strong point in the play of all our greatest backs, and should be cultivated by all those who wish to succeed. To the uninitiated, it seems that when the ball comes to a back he should return it vigorously and nothing more. This is far from being correct. Many of our best backs have been moderate kickers, but when they did kick, they did so with discretion and judgment, placing the ball to the halfback if he was free, or to the outside right or left as the run of play might be. Above all, a back should be a fine tactician, knowing when to go for the ball or when to put it quickly into touch, thus giving his fellow players time to get back and save the position. There have been many fine fullbacks during the last decade of football history, and probably the greatest were the brothers Walters of Corinthian fame, Nick Ross of Preston North End, and Walter Arnott of Queen's Park. The two Walters understood each other thoroughly, and as a pair were second to none. Arnott was the prettiest back to watch that I have ever seen, and Ross was about the most effective. The latter was certainly the most fearless player that I have ever run across, and seemed at times to plow his way through the attacking forwards. Chapter 3: The Middle Line. There is no shadow of doubt but that the halfback line is the backbone of a football team, and probably the center half catches the eye more than any other member of the 11. He ought really to be a general, as he is in command of both the attack and the defense. For many reasons he should be the captain of the side, for he can always encourage either the defense or the attack. He is like a wicket-keeper in cricket, who sees more of the game than any other player, and if he be not the captain, his advice should always be taken into serious consideration. I have seen so many expert halfbacks that I must refrain from dwelling upon the abilities of individual players. However, taking such great examples as C. Campbell of Queen's Park, Glasgow, Johnny Holt of Everton fame, J. Cowan of Aston Villa, now manager of Queen's Park Rangers, and many others, their methods practically agree. A halfback should be able to distribute the ball when it comes his way to the best advantage, and a long swinging pass from center or outside right or left, according to his judgment, has always proved most effective. No one understood this game more than Cowan, and I am certain others who know the player and game will testify to this. I prefer a fast man for this position, if only for the reason that from kick-off he gets going invariably before anyone else in the field. His head work ought to be excellent, and a great deal depends upon him whether the run of play be in the opponent's hands or otherwise. As a matter of fact, the distribution of play to the best results is practically left to him. It is a debatable point regarding the halves whether they should direct their main efforts against the opposing inside or outside forward. To my mind, there ought to be an understanding between the back and the half, but in theory, the halfback should tackle the inside forward and leave the outside man to the back. The best of critics disagree on this point, and I only give my personal view from the long experience I have had in playing the game. Still touching on the wing half, a halfback should certainly cultivate speed as well as ability, for he must never know when he is beaten. If a forward outmaneuvers him, he should instantly fall back on his own goal, so that when his back tackles the opposition, the halfback should be available to retrieve the position. That is to say, if the outside left, for instance, beats the right halfback, the latter should immediately get between the forward and the goal post, especially when his opponent is known to be a dangerous attacker. It is understood that a halfback has much more to do in proportion than any other player in the field, and should always be in the pink of condition. He has infinitely more running and twisting about to do, and should be most elastic. Many wing halfbacks are rather prone to wander all over the field, which is a mistake except in isolated cases. Probably E. Needham of Sheffield United was the most adaptable player in this respect, although H. Wilson, the Scottish international, ran him close. The mention of the latter's name brings back to my mind the period before the law as to throwing the ball in from touch was altered. Wilson was the expert, and stood alone. When playing for Sunderland, it was nothing unusual for him to throw the ball from the halfway line right into the goal mouth. Much may have been lost owing to the alteration in the law, for the player must now stand with both feet on the line instead of being able to have a good run ere he parts with the ball. The halfback should be a good shot, and should cultivate taking the ball on the run when shooting at goal. More goals would be scored if the halfbacks did not hesitate, but shot straight at the goal. The man who hesitates is lost, says a well-known proverb, and its truth is shown in halfback shooting as in any other way. Why more goals do not come from the halfback line is a mystery to me, but upon reflection, I think it is because they do not act on the spur of the moment. Still, this is a failing in the forward line as well as in the halfback division, and it is hardly fair to criticize them severely. In summary, my ideal halfback would be quite as